Waking up in Salhouse Broad brings back 1,000 memories. It's a great place to enjoy an evening meal as the sun sets, and a pleasant breakfast next morning. Salhouse is unusual in that it was formed as 10th century sand and gravel diggings flooded, not by peat diggings as with most of the other Broads. We're cruising toward Horning. For me, the magic of a trip on the Broads is the boat itself. There's something about being on the water that makes life relaxing. And Horning, early morning on a summer's day, is a delightful place. I've often wanted to record the trip from Horning to the Ferry Inn, where one can simply sit on the boat and watch the world go by. So I put a wide lens on the camera and put the camera on the front of the boat and let it roll. You'll notice there are not many boats moving. That's because it's late afternoon. You can imagine how enjoyable this trip was. Well, that was the trip in 20 times the speed. This is the trip as it happened. One of the reasons why the Broads first became popular is that it gave city dwellers the chance to get out into the countryside and see the wildlife. When the kids were young, I gave £1 to the first who spotted a heron. There would be about 5 sightings a week. Nowadays, we can see about 10 a day, which says a lot for the conservation people who helped make that happen. Here's me shooting a passing boat. And here's my shot. Likewise shooting the family. An interesting fact is that in the 12th century the east of Norfolk had one of the most dense populations across the country. The forests were cleared as people sought both fuel and timber for building. The rivers here clearly enabled the movement of goods, even in early days. In latter times, this was facilitated by the Norfolk wherry, one of the earliest forms of transport on the Broads. A wherry can carry around 25 tons of goods and was king here for around 200 years. I've been coming to the Broads for many years, and if you ask me the biggest change that's occurred during that time, I'd have to say it was the boats. Both the design and the facilities have greatly improved, but so too has the cost. My sister commented that 2 people can take a Mediterranean cruise cheaper than hiring one of the new boats. Now there's food for thought. We soon arrived in Ranworth, praying hard for a mooring space, but it's quite full. But suddenly someone left just as we were arriving, and we moored up. The berth gives us the opportunity to take on water. Ranworth is my favorite place on the Broads. It's a great place just to watch the goings-on. Check out the latest boat designs and empty the rubbish and maybe take a walk. The Maltsters has good meals. There are some takeaway restaurants nearby that now deliver to the staith.
We're in Ranworth and it's a beautiful day. Slight breeze, but not too windy.
The Norfolk Wildlife Trust has an information centre here, and there are plenty of mooring spots, though because of its popularity, never enough. Great place to eat, and my sister is getting the grub ready. Breakfast time. We got the morning papers from the shop. The weather is holding up. And so we decided to take the Helen of Ranworth electric boat on the Ranworth Broad nature trip. Always a pleasure, and always an opportunity to get to know what's been happening. Often seeing marsh harriers, cormorants, perhaps otters, herons, and occasionally a swallowtail butterfly. After the cruiser, it's quiet and peaceful. Boats other than the Helen of Ranworth are not allowed into Ranworth Broad. The warden's always a great source of information about the wildlife. Mother grebe on the nest. The black-headed gulls. Afterwards, a visit to the Broadland Conservation Centre and Shop, which is also a museum and lookout point. They even supply binoculars and a telescope. There's a boardwalk here where the swallowtail butterflies are often spotted. So we took a stroll through the Carr woodland, past the village hall, and up to the church. Stopping Forest Neck.
One of the joys of coming on the Broads is to come up to St Helen's Church, the Cathedral of the Broads. Come in the little coffee shop here and have some of their soup, a cup of tea, a scone with fresh cream, apple pie.
And here it is. On a day like today, one should take the 89 spiral steps to the top of the church tower for some spectacular views. Here we get an idea of how flat Norfolk is, how rural and relatively undisturbed. Then we take a stroll back to the Staithe. I'm always impressed by the woodland just before the Maltsters pub. It's a fascinating place and very photogenic. Ranworth was once quite a thriving village with a prosperous pub and several malt houses. The wool weavers and traders of the area are said to be responsible for the fine church. Today it's no more than a hamlet, but because of the boats it has many visitors, the Staithe being very popular. So off we go again. The first thing we see is the wherry yacht Olive, sailing into Malthouse Broad, picturesque and graceful, gliding along, a reminder of when the wherries were king. Passenger wherries like this had white sails. The trading wherries had black sails. We're planning to cruise up to Wayford Mill to moor for the night. First down the Bure, then up the Ent. We soon reach How Hill, my second favourite place on the Broads. The scenery here certainly epitomizes the Broads. The restored windmill. The How Hill House, a beautiful Edwardian manor house. It's a great place to stop off for several reasons, so we tie up the boat and take a walk. Two old passenger wherries were moored up too. Nate checked out the info. There's wildlife to see on the pasture, the Toad Hole Cottage. But it's our plan to return when we have more time. So we continue our journey. The wherry is the Hathor, who, as you may know, was an Egyptian goddess and is depicted by a woman with the head of a cow. I have a suspicion the name is due to the fact that Hathor was also honored as the goddess of the afterlife in the field of reeds, which was the Egyptian land of the dead. So it's therefore apt that Hathor is still among the reeds. Earthstead is a peaceful village with beautiful thatched houses, and where, it seems, the birds never stop singing. It's right next to Barton Broad, which after Hickling is the second largest broad. So we get a sudden change of scenery. The wind gets up. There's a wide expanse of water that soon gives way to the river again as we continue up the Ant. This is heron country, and there's generally a few around, especially in the evening. The last thing we pass is Hunsett Mill, the most photographed mill on the Broads. What a pleasant day it's been.